Om
ॐ
Kradundramahakaya
वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय
Suryakoti Samabhrabham
सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभा
Nirvignam
निर्विघ्नं
Guru Me
कुरु मे
Deva
देव
Sarvakaryeshu
सर्वकार्येषु
Sarvada
सर्वदा
Saraswati
सरस्वती
Namastabhyam
नमस्तुभ्यं
Varade
वरदे
Kamarupini
कामरूपिणि
Vidyarambam
विद्यारम्भं
Karishyami
करिष्यामि
Siddhirbhavatu
सिद्धिर्भवतु
Me
मे
Sada
सदा गुरु
Gurur
ब्रह्मा
Brahma
गुरु
Gurur
विष्णुः
Vishnu Gurur Devo
गुरुदेवो
Maheshwara
महेश्वरः
Guru
गुरु
Sakshat
साक्षात् परं
Param Brahma
ब्रह्म
Tasmai
तस्मै
Shri
श्री
Gurave
गुरवे नमः
Namaha Apara Karuna
ॐ
Sindhum Jnanadam
ज्ञानधं
Shantarupinam
शान्तरूपिणं
Sri Chandrasekhara Gurum
श्रीचन्द्रशेखरगुरुं
Pranamami
प्रणमामि
Mudanvaham
मुदान्वहम्
Yatkripalena
यत्कृपाले
Matrena
क्षमात्रेण पुमान्
Bhavanto
पूर्णः
Naf
प्रजायते
Prajayate Tam
तं
Bande Brahma
वन्दे
Viduryam
ब्रह्मवीरुजं
Sadgurum
सद्गुरुं
Chandrasekharam
चन्द्रशेखरम्
Om Sahana
सहनावतु
Bhavato
सहनो
Sahano
भुनक्तु
Bhunakto
सह वीर्यं
Sahaviryam
करवावहै
Karavavakai Tejasvina
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
Madhetamasto
विद्विषावहै
Vidvishavahai Om
ॐ
Shanti
शान्ति
Shanti
शान्ति
Shanti
शान्तिः
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha
ॐ श्रीपरमात्मने नमः
Atha Shashtodhyayah
अथ षष्ठोऽध्यायः
Shri Bhagavanuvacha
श्रीभगवानुवाच
Shloka number 31. 30 shloka we saw in the last class, now 31. Sarvabhutastitam yo mam bhajatyekatvamasthitah
सर्वभूतस्थितं यो मां भजन्त्येकत्वमास्थितः
सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि स योगी मयि वर्तते.
सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि स योगी मयि वर्तते.
So starting from the 29th shloka onwards. Sarvabhutastamatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati. Same idea. So here also sarvabhutastitam yo mam sarvabhutastitam sarvabhutastamatmanam atmanam yo mam pashyati sarvatra. Same. In all beings, the one who recognizes me in all beings, bhajati ekatvam astitaha. So mam bhajati, he recognizes me. Ekatvam astitaha, having gained the vision of oneness. So sayogi always, sarvata vartamanopi, sayogi mai vartate. Whatever he may be doing, the person is besides me alone, lives in me alone. Sayogi mai vartate. That's what Bhagavan said. Tasyaham nam pranashyami, sachamena pranashyati. So that Bhagavan says, Sarva Bhuta Sthitam Yomam Ekatvam Bhajati Ekatvam Astitaha San, having gained oneness, Jiva Ishvara Aikyam, the vision of oneness, Ekatvam, Sarva Bhuta Sthitam, the one, the me, who resides in all the beings, Bhajati gains, gain the vision of oneness, Sayogi Sarvata Mat Vartamanopi, in whichever state he may remain. That yogi is lives in me alone, abides me alone. So this shloka continues to discuss a person who has gained the vision of oneness of Jiva and Ishvara, oneness of Atma in all the beings, who knows that Atma is himself or herself and therefore not separate from the Lord, Ishvara. Such a person knows himself. Therefore, Atma is not different from Ishvara. Ishvara is, here we use Ishvara in the sense of Brahma. Such a person knows himself or herself to be Ishvara, in fact. So all this is restated here. Mam sarva bhuta stitam yaha bhajati. The one who resides in all the beings. Who is that? Mam. Vasudevam Ishwaram. So this refers to the one who gains the vision of Ishvara. As what? As that one who abides in all the beings. Sarva Bhutas bhuteshu tishtati stitam. So sarva bhuteshu tishtati means it is Lord who is seated, who abides in all the beings. Parishvara abides in all the beings. It means it is a self which is abiding in all the beings, Atma. Therefore, the self, Atma, is not separate from Ishvara. Therefore, that is Ekat. Jiva, Ishvara Ekatvam. The vision that is gained in terms of oneness, that is the same Atma. The same Atma is, this Atma is therefore not subject to division because of the Upadhi. Therefore, the oneness of Atma, that is Atma that is never divided, undivided whole. Atma cannot be divided. Atma is not divided by the Upadhi, cannot be divided by the Upadhi. The everything being Atma. Atma is Purnaha. How can the Upadhi bring about a division of Atma? So therefore, Sarva Bhuta Sthitam Atmanam Ishwaram. One who has the vision of that person, therefore he lives in me alone. And the one who recognizes Ishvara in this undivided form, Ekatvam, oneness, undivided form, the one who gains is Ishvara, this vision of Ishvara, the yogi, however he may she live, or whatever he may be doing. Sarvata Vartamanopi, Mayi eva vartate yogi. Sarvata Vartamanopi, Sayogi, Mayi vartate, he remains in me, he lives in me, he abides in me. Therefore, the Bhagavan says the person remains in alone. He's a jnani. Therefore, he lives in me alone. This shloka answers the question of whether having gained the vision, it can be lost. No. Once it is gained, so it cannot be lost. I am often asked, somebody suppose a person gains his vision. Is it not possible that living in the day-to-day life world of duality, the person can lose the Atma? No. Then what is the gain here? It is not something which you gain physically. It is knowing. Therefore, once knowledge is once gained, is gained. It is not subject to loss. And there is no memory problem here because it is oneself. So therefore, no. No one says here, whatever the person does, whatever happens to the person, sarvata vartamanapi, whatever happens to the person, if the person meets with an accident or gets into coma, or if it might, even if his brain is deranged, nothing that, but is nothing happens to Atma, then he doesn't, is jnani only, whatever state that person may vartate eva. Whatever the person does, or whatever happens to the person, seeing, hearing, talking, walking, in whichever he or she happens to live, as a brahmacharya, grasta, sannyasa, ashrama also doesn't bring about any limitation the person, whether he's a man or a woman, young or old, whatever it may be. Sarvata vartamanopi, the vision remains. Jnanam remains. The jnanam of oneness, the vision of oneness remains. That vision, that jnanam makes him free from samsara, from this Janma Varana Chakra, samsara, becomes muktaha. So whatever happens to the person is muktaha. Mukti gained is gained. Jnanam gained is mukti, and mukti gained is gained. It is not subject to loss. The stage of life the person is in, or the profession he or she happens to be pursuing, is all because of the person's prarabdha. So that cannot condition the Atma. Therefore, sayogi mayi vartate. In fact, there is nothing wrong for the person, there is nothing right. He is dharma, adharma, atita, dharma, dharma, atita. And therefore, the Shastra has no validity for that person, for the Jnani. For the person who has this vision, ekatvam, Shastra is no longer applicable, no longer it is valid. Whatever the Shastra says with reference to dharma and adharma, that is, does it not applicable to the person, because the person is above dharma and adharma, dharma, dharma, rita. At the same time, the person will not be a dharmika. He will naturally abide by dharma. This must be clearly understood. The person is free and therefore is muktaha. What mukta nitya muktaha? Nirashreha, already we have seen, is always free. Nirashreha. Therefore, the person saha na pranashyati, sachame na pranashyati, tasyaham na pranashyami. The person never goes away from me. Where will he go? Nitya muktaha. And never again do I become remote for the person. because one can never be away from oneself. Therefore, I never become paroksha for him. He also doesn't become paroksha for me, remote for me, because there is no distance, because it is oneself. Ishvara is myself. Therefore, how can Ishvara be remote for the person? Or how can he be remote for the Ishvara? Even now, even in the state of Ajnanam also, I am not away from the truth of myself, Sachit Ananda, though I may not know. Only ignorance can keep me away. And ignorance, and for this person discussed here, who has the vision, for him the ignorance is gone. Therefore, whatever the person, wherever the person, whatever she or he is doing, Sarvata Vartamanopi, whichever state he may be, the person remains me in me alone, oneself alone. Mayi vartate, mayi atmani brahmani vartate. Therefore, there is no question of moving away from me. For the for the person who is a Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta is the person who is liberated by living, is free, is Muktaha, and this Mukti, liberation, Moksha is the result of this vision, result of this knowledge of Atma. So Sarvata Vartabanopi Sayogi Mayi Vartate. He lives me alone. It means me, Ishvara. Ishvara is ever Muktaha, therefore he lives released from samsara, he lives happily. I mean, there is nothing to bind him. Ignorance is gone, therefore the limitations imposed on Atma is gone, and the discovery of oneness with Ishvara, therefore Agam Ishvara Tabhinnaha, not different from Ishvara. Therefore, he lives in me alone. Savimana is with the Parameshwara. In spite of enjoying the Upadi, having the Upadi, he lives with the Lord. He cannot be away from the Lord. That is living. It abates in me. Mayi Vartate. Bhagavan doesn't become remote for him. When you believe in Shastra, when you believe in Ishvara, he is remote. Ishvara is, if you believe, when you believe, then Ishvara becomes aparoksha. Ishvara is me, then it is aparoksha. The conclusion here then is that Ishvara is not something remote from oneself. God is not something away from oneself. He's not sitting in a place at a time. Therefore, Ishvaraha na paroksha. If Bhagavan has got some location to be reached in time, then it becomes paroksha. Paroksha is what is inferred, believed, or presumed. When knowledge is not there, then paroksha is inferred. You have a presumption that there is an Ishvara. That amounts to belief only. Because there is no verifiable proof. How do you verify? What is a verifiable proof that Ishvara is? So if you have presumption that there is Ishvara, that is a belief only. So as long as the existence of Ishvara is simply a belief, Ishvaraha asti, if you believe, then Ishvara is remote only. Something that exists for you indirectly, paroksha, it is a belief. Because it is not pratyaksha, it is not pratyaksha, it is paroksha, because it is a belief. Anything which is remote from you and you believe in it, it is paroksha. And if it is subject to verification, then you go and verify, that becomes pratyaksha. But how do you verify Ishvara when it is paroksha? If it is paroksha, if that is what your conclusion is, then it's a belief and he will be a paroksha only. Because you believe, because there is a presumption of Ishvara is. Therefore, Ishvara is inferred. Therefore, it is a belief. Similarly, if you say that a tree exists, but you don't directly see it, it is paroksha. Kalpa Vriksha exists. Kalpa Vriksha is a tree which is in the Swarga Loka. Whatever you ask, it will give, the tree will give. So is it there? How do you know? It is paroksha. It is in fact Nitya paroksha. Always it is paroksha. It can never become pratyaksha. If it is there and if you go and see, it becomes pratyaksha for you, but it will continue to be aparoksha for me, which is Nitya paroksha. Nitya paroksha. So therefore tree exists, you believe, you don't see it, it's a belief, therefore paroksha. Paroksha jnana. Paroksha Jnana means you don't see, but you believe. You believe. Based on some logic or based on some inference. That is Paroksha. Like by seeing smoke, you can presume that there is fire. It is Anumana, inference. Etra etra dhumaha tatra tatra vanni. Though you may not see the fire is not directly seen by you. Because you see the smoke, therefore you infer there is fire. Therefore you call the fire engine. So therefore it is Anumana, not Pratyaksha. You don't see the fire. You see the smoke directly, but not the fire. So therefore fire is inferred. Any object whose existence is arrived at by you through inference, that is Paroksha. Therefore Agni is Paroksha. You don't see the Agni. From the smoke you infer. Therefore Agni is known, indirectly known for you. Whereas anything that is sensorily perceived, anything you see, you hear, smell, taste, or touch, they are Pratyaksha. Available for your perception, immediate perception. When I hold a piece of crystal, knowing it is crystal, it is Pratyaksha for me. But for you, it will be Paroksha if you don't know whether it is a crystal or glass. You can infer it as a crystal until you see the weight of it, then you will know. So for the point to be made here is, whatever is directly perceived is Pratyaksha, and whatever is indirectly perceived, it is Paroksha. Now Ishvara cannot be Pratyaksha because he is not one more object available for your perception. Then if Ishvara cannot be Pratyaksha, if Ishvara could be directly perceived, it would mean that he is other than yourself, Anatma. Like any other perception, Ishvara also perceived, therefore it becomes Anatma. Therefore, Ishvara cannot be Anatma because it can never be an object for you because it is you. So Ishvara is not Anatma. So Anatma is entirely dependent upon you, Chaitanya. If Ishvara were to become Anatma, then it would be Mithya, and you being Atma would become Satyam. It's a problem. Because Ishvara cannot be Anatma, he can never become a Pratyaksha, an object of your perception. So, nor can he be inferred inference based on perception. Will you infer Ishvara? Since you believe that Ishvara exists, therefore Ishvara, which means Ishvara is Paroksha. The person who believes that Ishvara exists, Ishvaraha Asti, is Astika, who believes. For Astika, there is a Pramanam, Shastram, through which he comes to understand, comes to believe that Ishvara exists. And because you believe, you give the validity to the means of knowledge. Knowledge, that is Shastra being a Pramanam, and therefore giving the validity, and Shastra that Ishvara exists. Even though what is said is not verifiable, you give the validity to the means of knowledge. Because some supporting logic is available, therefore you accept Ishvara exists. And this belief, this acceptance is Paroksha Jnana, indirect knowledge. Ishvara Asti, Paroksha Jnana. When you analyze when you inquire the Swarupa of Ishvara and understand that Ishvara is Agam, that becomes Aparoksha. Aparoksha Nubhuti. So Paroksha Jnanam is Jnanam, and Aparoksha Jnanam is Vijnanam. Later Bhagavan says some chapter. Jnanam, Vijnana Sagitam. Now what about Atma Jnanam? Atma Jnanam, is it Paroksha or it is Pratyaksha? Atma Jnanam is, it is Aparoksha. It is not Pratyaksha, it is not Paroksha, it is Aparoksha, it is myself. But the knowledge being discussed in the shloka is not Paroksha Jnanam, not the Jnanam which has to be verified, which has to be, it is remote. Paroksha Jnanam is which is remote. The one who has gained the knowledge of Atma is the one who has gained the knowledge of oneself. Such a person concludes that Aham everything, I am everything. There is nothing separate from me. Here what the Lord says, me is what is implied in pure consciousness, Chaitanyam, which is Param Brahma, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, and everything else dependent upon this. And this Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma is Atma. Brahma is Atma. Therefore, there is no difference between Ishvara, Brahma, and myself. So I never become Paroksha to him. I never become remote to him because I am not away from him. He is not away from me. Nor does he become Paroksha to me. See, what he need not be away from. I need not be away from me, but he need not be away from me. But I may be away from the Lord possible because of Ajnanam. Therefore, both are negated. I don't become remote to him, and he also doesn't become remote. So on both sides, the remoteness is cancelled because it is myself. That Atma, Brahma, that Ishvara is myself. This is what is Advaitam, resolving the difference, the non-difference Aveda between Ishvara and Jiva. The Upadhi is being Mithya, therefore there is Aveda. That is the vision this yogi enjoys. Therefore, Sayogi, Mayi Vartate, it remains in this knowledge of oneness. The identity between Jiva and Ishvara, Jiveshwaraika, was also pointed out in the previous shloka. Now here Bhagavad also points out in his commentary of the previous shloka that Atma is Pratyaksha or Paroksha. Atma is not Pratyaksha, it is a subject, and it can never become Paroksha. It cannot be away because Atma is always free, Nitya Mukta. There is no bondage for Atma because there is nothing other than oneself. Therefore, Bhagavan says, the person remains in me alone, Mayi Vartate, because Atma is Brahma, Ishvara. Therefore, Mayi Ishvare Vartate. This means once ignorance is no longer there, there is no question of the knowledge being lost. Knowledge of oneness, oneself, Atma Jnana. As we saw before, it is not memory based, therefore not subject to loss. Once knowledge that is memory based, it can be forgotten like Sutra, like Sanskritam. Whatever you have, you can always lose. When not revised, it is subject to loss. But what about memory? For me, what about the memory of Atma? Atma need not be memorized. You don't have to remember. In fact, you need to remember your name. At least in the stage of coma, for a person who has gone to coma, you may have forgotten his name, parents, etc. Possible. But Atma cannot be forgotten. So it is not memory based. Because memory is something I have, therefore I can lose it, subject to loss. But here, what is known is myself alone. The self-ignorance, Atma Jnanam, I had before is gone in the wake of knowledge. Wherein the self, Atma, is equated with Brahma. Therefore, when this Aikya Jnanam is gained, when this vision of oneness, Jiveshwaram, is gained, Ekatvam, Bhajati Ekatvam, it is never lost. Therefore, Sayogi Mayi Vartate. Unless Atma becomes Paroksha, there is no question of the wise person being away from me. For that, Atma has to become Paroksha. Paroksha means difference. The difference is resolved. Therefore, there is no question of Atma becoming Paroksha. And Atma can never become Paroksha because it is Nitya Aparoksha. It is always Nitya Paroksha. It is myself, therefore, it is always directly known. It is not to be known going somewhere and verifying. Paroksha is something you verified after going there. Pratyaksha is which is available for your cognition by the help of Indriyas. This is Nitya Paroksha. It is myself, self-evident self. Always Nitya Paroksha. Therefore, it is directly known. Nitya Paroksha directly known by you. Whether you are a confused person or discriminating person or a jnani, Atma is never Paroksha, never remote. Samsara is directly known by the person. It is not something sinful. It is an experience for the person and therefore Aparoksha. As a samsari ajnani, I am is Aparoksha. As a vivekya ajnani, I am is Aparoksha. I am continuous. I am knowledgeable. I am samsari. So what about this I am? That is Nitya Aparoksha. Our Atma is always Nitya Aparoksha, self-evident. Maybe I may not know what the reality, the truth of that. But Atma is always Nitya Aparoksha. The truth of this Swarupa of I, when it is known, then Atma is Nitya Paroksha. That Nitya Paroksha Atma is as though it becomes Pratyaksha. Atma is always Nitya Paroksha. Being Nitya Paroksha, it is Nitya Mukta, always liberated. When the Nitya Paroksha Atma is Nitya Paroksha, when it is known, then it is called Aparoksha Anubhuti. Anubhuti means it is experience. Experience means there is some perception. The perception means not Pratyaksha, it is known as myself. That is the appreciation. That's what we say. Aproksha Anubhuti. It is Nitya Anubhuti. Atma is In every experience, Atma is. Nitya Aparoksha. Atma is there in every anubhuti, every experience, but it is not known as it is. That is why Nitya Aparoksha becomes as though something which is Aparoksha to be gained. That's why the notion of to be gained in time, to go somewhere, gain all this. Once it is known, it is self-evident. Atma is Nitya Mukta, Nitya Paroksha. It is always liberated. It is that's why Siddhas is Siddhiki. There is no travel involved, there is no going involved, because it is myself, really myself alone. So therefore it is an experience for the person, therefore Aparoksha. As a samsari ajnani, I am is Aparoksha. As Viveka ajnani, I am Aparoksha. So I am is always Aparoksha, whether the person is a jnani or samsari. That is the nature of Atma, Nitya Paroksha. It can never become Paroksha. It can become Paroksha only for the Ajnani. Even the Ajnani doesn't know. I am is always a Paroksha. It is always evident. Therefore, Atma is Nitya Paroksha, always evident. Being Nitya Paroksha, Atma is Nitya Mukta, because it is Nitya Paroksha. Nitya Paroksha means it is myself. Therefore, Nitya Muktaha, it is always liberated. And knowledge makes the person recognize this fact. That is what the Pramanam Shastra does, makes the person recognize the fact, appreciate the fact that I am ever liberated. That is why the person gets Jivan Muktaha. He is ever Muktaha by Jnanam, Jivan Muktaha. Atma doesn't gain Mukti. Atma is ever Muktaha. That is recognized. Therefore, Jiva becomes Jiva Muktaha. There is no more Janma, there is no more Samsara for him. While living, the person gains a knowledge, and that is what is called Moksha. Moksha is gained here. That is why it is Nitya Aparoksha. Surgaloka is gained by traveling. Therefore, in Surgaloka is Nitya Paroksha. And Atma, here itself, Atma is not located somewhere, you go and find it. It is not Paroksha. And is it Pratyaksha? That Anubhuti happens, appreciation. In that sense, it is Aparoksha Anubhuti. It is not Pratyaksha. It is not an object for you to objectify. Therefore, it is not Pratyaksha. It is not Pratyaksha. It is not Paroksha. It is not Nitya Paroksha. It is Nitya Aparoksha. It is. There are things which are Aparoksha. This is Nitya Aparoksha, always Aparoksha. It is always Nitya Aparoksha. It is. That which is Paroksha can become Aparoksha or Pratyaksha when you go and verify. But Atma is ever Aparoksha because it is myself. So therefore, once this knowledge is gained, therefore the person becomes Jivan Muktaha. And once his knowledge has been gained, that the person do whatever he wants, because knowledge gained is gained, he will not lose it. Therefore, he will not be subject to Ajnanam and therefore samsara. So whatever he does, do whatever he wants, perform Vaidika karma or not, teach or not teach, he is a jnani. Let the person be in any stage of life, Grastahava, Brahmachariva, Vanaprastava, Sannyasiva, and perform any action, he or she is still with me alone. Sarvata Vartamanopi, Mai Vartate. Even for the sake of argument, if such a person were to commit murder, then also the person would not be away from me. Then also is Muktaha only, because the action of committing murder doesn't accrue to the person, the palam, because he is not a doer. If you ask him, who did the killing? I didn't do, because as Atma cannot kill. Nahanti nahanyate. But that is the shloka in the second chapter. Atma doesn't kill and doesn't get killed. Atma can never become the karta nor the karma of any kriya. So Atma cannot do. So therefore, it means whatever the person does is with me alone, Iti Bhagavan says, because everything is Ishvara, everything is Bhagavan. The next question, of course, could such a person commit papa, such actions which brings papam? No. Bhagavan says in the next shloka, such a person cannot do any adharmika karma, wrong action. It's not possible. Such a person only will be spontaneously dharmika. All other people are dharmika either by force or either they practice but not spontaneously. But this person is spontaneously dharmika. People are dharmika either because of afraid of the society or because of afraid of the punishments or the papam, possible papam, whereas this person is dharmika not because of anything. Therefore, is a real dharmika, spontaneously dharmika person. He cannot violate the order. So therefore, such a person cannot commit any papa. That is the next shloka we will see tomorrow. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Dhanyavadaha.